Have you ever wondered what it would be like if the most dangerous angels in history were still waiting to be unleashed? Imagine this: 4 powerful angels bound at the Euphrates River, waiting for the exact moment to bring destruction. Could this time be closer than we think? Welcome. In today's video, we'll uncover one of the Bible's most mysterious stories: 4 angels imprisoned at the Euphrates River, awaiting their release in the final days. Why are they bound, and what will happen when they are set free? This is not just a tale, it's part of God's profound plan for the end times. In the next few minutes, we'll explore who these angels are, their connection to ancient history, and what their eventual release means for the world. This is a biblical truth that speaks directly to our lives today. Let's dive in and unravel the mystery hidden in Revelation. 1. Who are these angels? In Revelation 9:14, the Apostle John describes a dramatic moment where a voice from the altar of God commands, "Release the 4 angels who are bound at the great river Euphrates." These angels are no ordinary celestial beings. They are not messengers of peace or servants of God's will, but rebellious angels, fallen from grace, who have been chained, awaiting the exact moment for their release. But why are they bound? And what does this tell us about the nature of their rebellion? These angels are fallen because of their defiance against God's divine order. Unlike the loyal angels who serve as God's messengers, these beings chose to abandon their rightful place, led astray by pride and their desire to disrupt the plans of the Almighty. Their punishment is severe, bound until the appointed time for divine judgment. The fact that they are bound shows us a profound truth. Even the most powerful forces of evil are ultimately under God's control. No matter how fierce or destructive evil may seem, it exists only within the boundaries that God has set. The very image of these angels bound in chains serves as a powerful reminder that God's justice is perfect and meticulous. Evil is allowed to exist temporarily, but it is never free to act outside of God's sovereign will. They wait, restrained, knowing that their release will bring about a devastating judgment, one that will unfold in God's perfect timing. 2. The prophecy and its connection to the last days. In Revelation 9:15-16, the Bible reveals that when the 4 angels are released, they will bring destruction upon the earth, and 1/4 of humanity will perish. This is no ordinary event. It is part of God's divine judgment, a crucial moment in the unfolding of the end times. The release of these angels will signal the intensification of the spiritual warfare that has been building since the fall of man. But why does God allow such destruction? Why does He permit these angels, who are agents of His judgment, to bring devastation? The answer lies in God's perfect justice and His plan to purify the earth before His final reign. The Bible teaches us that evil will not go unpunished and that every rebellion against God's divine will must eventually face its consequence. The release of these angels is not arbitrary. It is the fulfillment of God's righteous plan. Their destruction will be a direct result of humanity's rejection of God's truth and love. Throughout history, humanity has experienced wars, famines, and natural disasters, but the Bible tells us that this event will surpass them all. The time will come when humanity's rebellion reaches its peak, and these angels, locked in chains for so long, will be unleashed to fulfill God's purpose of final judgment. It serves as a warning. God's patience is not infinite, and while He allows evil to exist temporarily, there will be a time when it will be brought to an end. For us as believers, this prophecy serves as both a reminder and a call to action. It reminds us that the final judgment is certain and that God's justice will prevail. It calls us to live in alignment with God's will, to remain faithful to His word, and to prepare our hearts for the coming of His kingdom. The Bible makes it clear: God's timing is perfect, and the day of reckoning is inevitable. 3. The Euphrates River, a symbol of God's control. The Euphrates River holds much more significance in the Bible than just being a geographical location. In Revelation, it plays a key role as the site where these 4 fallen angels abound, awaiting their appointed release. Why the Euphrates? What makes this river so pivotal in God's divine plan? Historically, the Euphrates has been a symbol of boundaries, both physical and spiritual. It marks the dividing line between empires, civilizations, and even the realm of good and evil. The great civilizations of Babylon, Assyria, and Persia once flourished along its banks, and each of these empires posed a threat to the people of God. Babylon, in particular, is known for its opposition to the kingdom of God, making the Euphrates an appropriate place for the binding of these rebellious angels. It represents the frontiers of evil, a boundary that God has established to keep the forces of darkness in check. Spiritually, the Euphrates is not just a river, it is a powerful symbol of God's sovereignty. This river, a natural boundary, serves as a reminder that God controls all things, even the forces of evil. The angels who are bound there are not free to act according to their will. They are held within God's perfect plan, waiting for the exact moment of their release. The fact that they are confined to this specific location shows us that God has established limits on evil. Even when it seems as though darkness is growing, we can rest assured that it remains under God's control. No matter how powerful evil forces may appear, they cannot escape the boundaries that God has set. The Euphrates also symbolizes God's timing. Everything unfolds at His appointed moment. While these angels remain imprisoned, their eventual release will happen in perfect accordance with God's divine schedule. This teaches us a profound lesson. Even when we face challenges and feel as though the forces of evil are gaining ground, we must remember that God is in control. He is never late, and His plans will unfold at just the right time. 4. The fallen angels, their mission and authority. In Revelation 9:15-16, we learn that the 4 angels bound at the Euphrates River will not only be released, but will also wield immense power. They are not just passive prisoners. They have been granted authority to carry out a divine task, one that will have catastrophic consequences for humanity. The Bible tells us that when these angels are set free, they will bring destruction, killing 1/4 of the earth's population. This speaks to the incredible power they hold and the weight of the judgment they are destined to execute. These fallen angels are not ordinary beings. They were once part of the heavenly host, created by God to serve His divine purposes. However, they chose rebellion over obedience, and as a result, they were cast down from their exalted positions. Their punishment is not just to be imprisoned, but to be given a role in God's final judgment. This reveals an important truth. Even the forces of evil are used to fulfill God's ultimate plan. While their actions will bring devastation, they will also serve as instruments of God's justice, showing that no rebellion against God goes unnoticed and unpunished. The authority these angels have is given to them directly by God, and it serves a greater purpose. Their mission is not random destruction, but a part of God's perfect plan to cleanse the earth and prepare it for His kingdom. This highlights an important spiritual lesson. Even when we face trials and destruction, we can trust that it is not without purpose. The evil in the world, though painful and sorrowful, ultimately serves to demonstrate the righteousness of God and His ultimate victory over evil. For us as believers, this truth reminds us of the reality of spiritual warfare. These angels are powerful, but they are still under God's control. Their authority is granted for a specific time and purpose, and it shows that nothing in the universe, whether good or evil, happens outside of God's will. This should encourage us to stand firm in our faith, knowing that God's justice is perfect and His plans will be carried out according to His timing, no matter the opposition we face. 5. The impact of their release on the world. In Revelation 9:18, the Bible reveals the staggering consequences of the angels' release. By these 3 plagues, 1/3 of mankind was killed. This moment in the end times will bring unparalleled devastation, death, destruction, and chaos. The impact of their release will be catastrophic, marking the beginning of a period of judgment like the world has never seen. These 4 angels are not just bringers of random destruction. Their actions will serve as a wake-up call to the world, a final demonstration of God's wrath against sin and rebellion. This terrifying event is not without purpose. It is part of God's divine justice. Throughout history, humanity has faced wars, natural disasters, and calamities. But the Bible warns us that the destruction brought by these angels will surpass them all. The world will be forced to reckon with the consequences of turning away from God. These angels, as instruments of God's judgment, will carry out their mission, not because they desire destruction, but because it is God's will that His judgment on sin be fully realized. Spiritually, this event serves as a reminder that evil will not go unpunished. God's justice will prevail. Even when it seems like evil is winning, we can take comfort in knowing that God's timing is perfect and His judgment is sure. While the destruction will be devastating, it is a necessary step in the final purification of the earth. It will signal that the time has come for the fulfillment of God's promises to His people and the ultimate establishment of His kingdom. For us as believers, this passage serves as both a warning and an encouragement. The warning is clear. The world will face a reckoning for its rejection of God, and no one can escape His judgment. But the encouragement is even greater. We are reminded that God is in control, and He will bring about justice in His perfect time. As we witness the brokenness of the world around us, we must remember that this is not the final chapter. God's justice is coming, and it will be fully realized. Until then, we must stay faithful, trusting in His plan and preparing our hearts for His return. 6. God's timing. The mystery of the angel's imprisonment. In Revelation 9:15, we learn that these 4 angels are not released until God's appointed time. They are bound, waiting for a specific moment in history when God's perfect plan will unfold. This divine imprisonment is not a random event. It speaks to the heart of God's sovereignty and His perfect timing. These angels are held in chains, not because they have no power, but because God has placed them in confinement until the time for judgment arrives. This concept of divine timing is a powerful theme throughout the Bible. From the flood in Noah's time to the rise and fall of empires, God has always worked within a predetermined schedule. As Ecclesiastes 3:1 says, "To everything there is a season, and a time for every matter under heaven." The release of these angels is not something that happens in haste or by accident. It is part of a divine timeline set in motion long before the earth was formed. This truth gives us comfort. Nothing in this world, not even the forces of evil, operates outside of God's timing. Spiritually, we are reminded that God's timing is always perfect, even when we don't understand it. The world may seem chaotic, and we may face trials that seem unjust or out of control, but the Bible assures us that God works all things according to His will. The angels bound at the Euphrates River are a tangible example of God's control over the forces of darkness. They wait, imprisoned, restrained, and under God's absolute authority, until the moment when their release will fulfill His perfect plan of justice. For us as believers, this teaches us an essential lesson. We must trust God's timing. When we face difficulty or uncertainty, we can be confident that God has a purpose for everything. His plans will not be rushed. He has a divine order, and every moment in our lives is part of that greater design. The release of these angels, according to God's perfect timing, reminds us that God is never late, and He will fulfill His promises at the right time. Our job is to remain faithful, trust in His timing, and prepare our hearts for what He is about to do. 7. How should we respond to the reality of spiritual warfare? In Ephesians 6:12, the Apostle Paul reminds us, "For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers over this present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places." The story of the 4 angels bound at the Euphrates River is not just a historical or prophetic event. It's a wake-up call for us today to recognize the reality of spiritual warfare and the constant battle between good and evil. These angels, once fallen, now await their moment to fulfill a purpose that will bring devastation. Yet they also serve as a reminder that there are forces beyond what we can see or comprehend that influence the course of history and our lives. The release of these angels will mark a moment of spiritual warfare unlike anything the world has ever seen. This is not just a fight on the physical realm, but a clash of spiritual powers that affects every part of our lives. While these angels serve God's ultimate judgment, they are also agents of chaos set to bring about destruction and turmoil. But even in the face of such overwhelming evil, we are not left helpless. The Bible assures us that we are equipped to fight this battle, not with physical weapons, but with the spiritual armor of God. Ephesians 6:13-17 outlines the armor of God, which includes the belt of truth, the breastplate of righteousness, the shield of faith, the helmet of salvation, and the sword of the Spirit. Each piece represents an essential part of our spiritual defense. The armor of God is our protection against the forces of darkness, giving us the strength to stand firm, even when spiritual warfare intensifies. It reminds us that we must actively prepare ourselves through prayer, through the study of God's Word, and through living in alignment with His will. Spiritually, the reality of spiritual warfare should motivate us to be proactive in our faith. As we see the world grow darker with increasing signs of moral decay and spiritual confusion, we must not shy away from the battle. God calls us to be warriors of light, standing firm in His truth, righteousness, and power. We are to take up the shield of faith to protect ourselves from doubt and wield the sword of the Spirit, the Word of God, as our weapon against the lies of the enemy. For us as believers, this means remaining vigilant in prayer, never underestimating the spiritual forces at work around us. When we face trials, we must remind ourselves that they are part of the ongoing spiritual battle, and God has given us everything we need to stand strong. We are not alone. God has equipped us with His armor, His power, and His presence. Now it's up to us to put it on daily, trusting in His strength to overcome whatever challenges come our way. Conclusion. As we come to the end of our exploration into the four angels bound at the Euphrates River, we see that this powerful mystery is a reminder of God's ultimate control over both good and evil. These fallen angels, though powerful and dangerous, are bound until the perfect moment in God's divine plan. When they are released, it will mark a pivotal moment in history, a time of great judgment and purification, fulfilling God's righteous justice. This prophecy shows us that nothing is out of God's control, and that His perfect timing will bring about His ultimate plan for the world. Reflecting on the release of these angels, we are reminded of the vastness of God's sovereignty. Even when evil seems to prevail, it is never outside of His watchful eye. These angels, once rebellious, serve a higher purpose in God's judgment, which will ultimately restore righteousness to the earth. Their story challenges us to live with the understanding that God's plan is much bigger than we can fully comprehend. We are part of a divine narrative, and every moment, every event, is part of God's perfect timing. The battle between good and evil is real, but we can take comfort knowing that our God is victorious and His justice will prevail. If this video has helped you understand the profound mystery behind these angels and God's perfect timing, share it with your loved ones, and let's continue to grow in our knowledge of His Word. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more deep dives into the Bible and the mysteries of our faith. Remember, we are in a spiritual battle, and we must remain firm in our faith, trusting that God is in control of all things. Stay vigilant, keep your heart focused on Him, and walk boldly in His strength. May God bless you abundantly.